in today's episode, I want to talk about art challenges or drawing challenges or painting challenges because October is right around the corner, and I know that many of you guys are going to be participating in Inktober, which is a very, very popular drawing challenge, daily drawing challenge that so many people all around the world participate in the month of October. Now, if this is the first time that you're hearing about Inktober, I will make sure to leave a link in the text section below this post where you're going to be able to find more about this challenge and also the prompt list, because the creator of Inktober has already released the prompt list for October 2021, which is super exciting. So it's going to be an awesome challenge for those of you who are interested in improving your pen and ink drawing skills. Now, having said all this about Inktober, there are so many different drawing and painting challenges that you can find online that are taking place all throughout the year. So the tips that I'm going to be providing to you in today's video are going to be not only for Inktober, but any type of art challenge that you might want to participate in. So I've compiled a list of my 8 top tips that are going to help you actually succeed at completing these kinds of daily art challenges, and are also going to help you enjoy the process much more and get the most growth out of them. And I'm also going to be cracking open this old sketchbook that has all of the pieces that I completed for a past Inktober so that I can provide you some examples of some of the tips that I'm going to be sharing with you. All right, so before getting into my 8 tips, I want to quickly explain why, in my opinion, these kinds of daily art challenges, whether it's drawing or painting, can be incredibly helpful and can help propel your artistic growth. So reason number 1 is because usually these kinds of challenges are daily art challenges. So you have to do something new every single day. And that in and of itself can be amazing because, as I mentioned before, consistency is key. And it doesn't really have to be something big that you're doing or something perfect. We're not going for perfection here. But because you have to do something new every single day for 31 days or however many days, it really, really puts that pressure on you, and it's a huge challenge because you have to come up with something new every single day and see that piece through every single day if you want to make it through and complete the challenge. And that can do a ton for your momentum and for you to stay consistent, which I mentioned before. Consistency really is absolutely key. And not only this, but you also really stretch your creativity because you are given a set of constraints, which in the case of Inktober, you have to be doing something with ink. You have to be working with the prompts that you are given, with that list that you are given by the Inktober creator, and you have to be doing something new every single day. When you are given a set of constraints like that, it's pretty amazing what that can do for your creativity. Sometimes we need to be given a set of constraints to really stretch ourselves and open up our horizons and come up with ideas that we otherwise would have never thought of. And that is one of the keys why we make so much progress when we're able to go to art school, because professors give us briefs or a set of constraints, and we need to push ourselves to create something original within those constraints that we know we're going to be graded on, and come up with a new original idea that fulfills all of those constraints. And so because of these reasons, your creativity is greatly challenged. Your creative muscles grow so much when you have to come up with something new and original every single day. So these types of art challenges definitely help you with that consistency or to get that momentum going, which is huge if you're struggling with that kind of thing. They also really help you grow your creative muscles. And another couple of things why they are so important is because, of course, because of this consistency, you are able to develop your cold artistic skills, which in this case, for Inktober, it's drawing, and more specifically, it's using pen and ink. I'm pretty sure that by the time you complete Inktober, those last few pieces are going to be much better than the first ones that you create. You're going to be able to see an improvement in your drawing and also in your pen and ink work. And the final reason why I feel that these challenges are so helpful that I don't feel is talked about very often is that they can really do wonders for helping you bust through any perfectionistic tendencies that you might have, which is definitely something that I struggled with in the beginning of my journey. Why? Because as I said, you have to do something new every single day. And if you get stuck with just one piece to try to make it perfect or redo it or whatever the case may be, you're probably going to start later the next day, and that is going to kind of affect your momentum for the following days. You can really get behind, and then it can be very challenging for you to catch up. So you certainly have to get comfortable with things not turning out perfectly, or even being okay with not completing one of those pieces and letting it go and moving on to the next. So for me, taking part of that kind of challenge, it really, really helped me understand that I have to let things go, understand that not everything that I create is going to be perfect, and also just move on to the next thing and keep moving on and moving on and moving on to the next. Okay, so let's get into my top 8 tips for completing, for succeeding, for getting the most out of these kinds of daily art challenges, and also enjoying them. Tip number 1 is going to be to make time to do some planning and prep work before whatever the first day of that drawing or painting challenge is, before getting started with it. And what I mean by this is make sure that you're taking time to plan when, at what point in the day are you going to be doing that work that makes sense with your current schedule and everything that you have going on. Make sure that you are planning for the amount of time that you're going to be spending on each piece, whether it's going to be 30 minutes, whether it's going to be an hour. This totally depends on you and the time and resources that you have. And yes, of course, absolutely, not every day is going to be perfect. Life happens, emergencies pop up, things that we need to take care of, and you're going to miss a day or two, or you're going to have to change your schedule time a day or two, and that's perfectly normal. But at least giving thought to this beforehand is going to set you up for greater success, and there's less likely of a chance that you're going to fall behind. And finally, also make sure that you take time to plan and prepare the specific art supplies that you're going to be using. Are you going to be using a specific sketchbook for this art challenge? Are you going to be using pens? Are you going to be using pencils? Are you going to be needing a special kind of eraser? Make sure that you have everything prepared for you that you need to get started and to make it through the entire month. Moving on to tip number 2, and this one might be a little bit controversial, but I am by no means a purist when it comes to Inktober or any sort of other art challenge, because I feel that just taking part of it and doing what you can is more than enough, and it's a great challenge in and of itself. And this one is to not be afraid to change the criteria in order to make the challenge work for you. Everyone has a bunch of things going on in their lives that they have to take care of. Most of my students and community members have full-time jobs, part-time jobs, kids, things to take care of around the house. They're business owners, they're going to school. It's just very important to be practical about it and give thought to how you're going to be making it work for you. How much time you have to devote to something like this is really going to vary from person to person. It's very important to just know that even if you're able to do something small, if you stay consistent and are able to complete this challenge, you're going to see a ton of growth. But it's super, super important to be practical about how you're going to be taking part of this challenge, what you're going to be doing every day, and also if you have to make changes in the constraints or the criteria, do it. In my opinion, even if you do something that's smaller, even if you do something in a different way, it is still going to lead you to a ton of growth if you do something every single day. You know, there's absolutely no shame in deciding that this year, maybe what you're going to be doing is doing 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off. Maybe you decide to do one larger piece that incorporates all of the prompts for the week just on the weekends. Or maybe you decide to take part of Inktober and just not share because maybe you feel that that is too much pressure right now. Whatever you decide to do is perfectly okay, and you should congratulate yourself for just taking part of this challenge. It takes a lot of courage to push yourself in this way. In the past, I've seen videos of artists participating in Inktober just being very honest about how they actually did work on those prompts before the actual day that that prompt was for, because they knew that they were going to have very busy days coming up in that week or whatever. And I saw how criticized they were for doing this, because purists think that you should only be working on a specific prompt every single day. I honestly do not see this as a bad thing and applaud those artists for being very honest about how they were able to manage and complete Inktober. And sharing this with their audience. So whatever works for you. Another thing I've seen in past Inktober's is how overwhelmed and frustrated people become. First few days, the first week, even the first couple of weeks, maybe you're fresh, you're motivated, you're able to stay consistent, but these are 31 days. It's a marathon and not a sprint, and you really need to pace yourself. And I've seen how people give up midway through, or they see their not completing Inktober as a failure, and then they don't want to take part of the challenge or challenges like this again because it was a disappointment for them and whatnot. Be practical about what makes sense for you so that this can be a positive experience for you, a positive growth experience. All right, moving on to tip number 3, and this one is something that really helped me when I completed this past Inktober. And this one is to take inspiration from movies, from books, and from music. So most of us tend to go on Pinterest or Instagram or whatever and look for inspiration in the form of other artists' visual work, drawings, paintings, whatever the case may be. But not only do I not recommend looking at other people's Inktober's work until after you've done yours, which is the next tip. What I suggest is really looking into movies that you've liked, especially when it comes to Inktober, scary movies, horror movies, if you're into that kind of thing. But it doesn't necessarily have to be scary drawings. Even if you want to do cute drawings, if that's more your thing, that's cool too. You can use movies that you love as well. Music that you love, books that you love that come to mind when you read that word or that prompt. So just as an example, this is a past word from the prompt list from this past Inktober. It was cruel, and I thought of drawing the witch's hand with the apple from Snow White. For the word drain, this scene from the movie It came to mind. And for the word swollen that came up in the prompt list, I thought of drawing the character from Fight Club. And here's another one. I thought of this guy from Silent Hill for this prompt. And here's a scene from one of my favorite horror movies, The Shining. I thought of this scene for this prompt. So don't only look for inspiration in the form of other artists' drawings or paintings. Make sure that you're looking inside of yourself and really coming up with ideas based on movies, music, books, and other types of art genres that you enjoy. Moving on to tip number 4, and this one is to avoid looking at other artists' work until after you've finished with your own piece. For me, this is very important because this is going to stretch you creatively, and you're going to make sure that your ideas, your concepts are truly coming from yourself. As visual people, we tend to be very influenced by the things that we have around us, even at a subconscious level. And so for me, I want to make sure that as much as possible, what I create is coming out from myself. And this is not to say that maybe someone else ends up doing the same thing or something similar as you, but at least you know that while you were working on that piece, you weren't being externally influenced. This is going to do wonders for you in terms of really starting to get confident in using your own ideas and your own concepts, and also in getting to know yourself artistically. Tip number 5 is going to be to devote at least a certain percentage of your working time to doing brainstorming and quick pencil thumbnail sketches to plan out your compositions. You can decide for yourself if you want that small percentage of your time to be on that day for that prompt that you're going to be working on, or earlier in the week. This is going to make it so that you already have those ideas flowing, those gears turning in your head for what you're going to be doing today or on that day, since beforehand, and you don't sit down with a completely empty slate and no ideas at all. I remember in this past Inktober that I participated in, I was already thinking of prompts that were coming up, and if I had any ideas, any connections that I was making that would help me on that day in that drawing, I would be brainstorming or writing down lists so that I wouldn't forget. And if you have time to do any practice sketches that you feel will help you succeed at that final piece more easily, then by all means, if you have time, go ahead and do your practice. Tip number 6 is going to be to incorporate some element of coherency or consistency in all of your pieces. This past Inktober, you've probably already noticed that I added in the prompt in this vertical upwards position there, and then I also used the same background design behind all of my illustrations, because this way they would all have some sort of consistency amongst them so that they could actually look like a series of sorts. And this is also super, super helpful for you because you know that there is going to be something that you have to incorporate in every single one of your pieces. And it really helps you because, for example, in this case, I knew that I was going to have these flat uniform black shapes behind my subjects or my objects. And it kind of gave me something to have in my brain when I was thinking of the position and the perspective or the angle that I would be drawing the main subject or object in. So you already have certain things in your head when you are visualizing that composition, and it's not completely empty and you have to build up something from scratch. You already have something in there that you're visualizing. You're able to visualize this new subject or object within that little world that you've already created. Tip number 7 is going to be to not strive for perfection in your pieces. Progress is going to come without you even striving for things to be perfect because you're staying consistent day to day. Okay, so there is no need to get stuck with one same piece or to berate yourself because it didn't turn out the way that you initially envisioned it. Just complete it and move on to the next thing the following day. Remember that the point of this is progress, not perfection. And also always remember to have fun, to make it fun. And congratulate yourself for every single little milestone or drawing that you're able to complete. Moving on to the very last tip that I'm going to be sharing with you today so that you can get the most out of these types of art challenges. And this one is to actually make time to reflect on both your creative process as well as your finished pieces at the end once you have completed it. This is so key so that you can find common threads amongst your pieces and also be able to really move on with your practice in a more strategic and mindful way based on whatever weaknesses and strengths you find in your pieces. But it's not only about reflecting and doing self-evaluation on your final pieces, it's also really about giving thought to how you managed your time, right? During the month as an artist, time management is super important. and your entire creative process for how you manage to come up with your ideas, to do any type of brainstorming, all of these pieces that you find out about yourself, your own way of doing things, and your creative process as a whole, that you can really pull and take to future artwork that you create, and take note of these things so that you can always keep improving not only your, cold technical skills, but also your entire process, your productivity, your time management, because all of that is going to affect how you move forward and how much progress you're able to make in the future with anything that you decide to work on. That is going to do it for today's art tips. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found some helpful nuggets in it. I wish you tons of luck and most of all, enjoyment as you move forward with Inktober or any art challenge that you might choose to tackle in the future. Have a beautiful rest of your weekend. Take good care and talk to you soon. Bye, guys.